Don't overlook your pennies. Coins from 1960, 1979, and 1988 may look like ordinary change, but rare errors and top-grade examples can be worth far more than 1 cent. Your pocket change could be hiding a real treasure. The 1960 US 1 cent penny is one of those coins that collectors never seem to stop talking about, not because every single one of them is rare or valuable, but because a small group of them carry extraordinary stories, minting quirks, and historical significance that make them worth far more than their humble face value. This single-cent coin, struck more than 6 decades ago, has earned its place in the world of numismatics as both a common everyday coin and, in its rarest forms, a numismatic treasure that has sold for staggering sums. Some examples of the 1960 penny have fetched prices between $66,000 and $138,000, showing just how much passion and demand collectors bring to this iconic issue. To understand why the 1960 penny holds such fascination, we first need to look at the context of its creation. By 1960, the Lincoln cent had already been in production for over 50 years. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, becoming the first circulating U.S. coin to feature the portrait of an actual historical figure rather than a symbolic design. The original design, by Victor David Brenner, placed Lincoln's profile on the obverse and 2 wheat stalks on the reverse. But in 1959, to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and the 50th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself, the reverse design was changed from the wheat ears to the Lincoln Memorial. This meant that the 1960 cent was only the second year of this new Lincoln Memorial reverse design, and collectors were already paying attention. The obverse of the 1960 penny retained Brenner's classic portrait of Lincoln, facing right, with the inscriptions "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1960 to the right. The mint mark, if present, would appear just below the date. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, featured a detailed rendering of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. What made this design particularly special is that, if you looked closely, you could see the tiny outline of the statue of Lincoln seated within the memorial, making it the only U.S. coin at the time to feature the same individual on both sides. But beyond the design itself, the 1960 penny is remembered primarily for one of the most famous and fascinating varieties in modern U.S. coinage, the 1960 small date and large date cents. For reasons tied to adjustments in the master hubs used to produce dies, there were actually 2 different date styles minted in 1960. On the small date version, the numbers in the year, particularly the 0 in 1960, appear smaller and less bold, while the large date version has thicker, taller numerals. The difference may seem subtle to a casual observer, but for collectors, these variations created an entire market of interest and demand. The small date 1960 pennies, especially those struck at the Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark, were produced in much smaller quantities and quickly became favorites among collectors. Even more fascinating is the fact that proof sets released by the Mint that year also included small date varieties, making them some of the most sought-after proof sets in the entire Lincoln series. In fact, when word spread that small date proofs had been included in the Mint's official proof sets, collectors rushed to buy them up, and secondary market prices for these coins skyrocketed almost immediately. But where things become even more exciting is when minting errors and high grades enter the picture. The combination of the small date and high-level preservation has resulted in some coins fetching truly jaw-dropping sums. Coins graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC have commanded prices that soar into the tens of thousands. And then there are examples that combine rarity with absolute perfection, selling at auction for amounts between $66,000 and $138,000. These results shocked many collectors at the time, but they also cemented the 1960 penny as a legendary coin in the modern numismatic market. Beyond the small date and large date varieties, there are also notable double die examples of the 1960 penny. A double die occurs when the die used to strike the coin has been impressed with the design more than once, at slightly different angles, resulting in letters and numbers that appear doubled. Some 1960 pennies show strong doubling in the date or inscriptions, making them dramatic and extremely collectible errors. These doubled die cents can command significant premiums, especially in uncirculated condition. Even the Mint's decision-making in 1960 adds to the intrigue of this coin. The shift between small date and large date dies reflects the challenges the Mint faced in perfecting the appearance of coins during mass production. At the time, quality control and demand were colliding in new ways, as more Americans were starting to save proof sets and collectible coins than ever before. The Lincoln Memorial reverse was still fresh, and public interest in the design meant that variations and errors were noticed more quickly. The fact that both versions exist in circulation today, and that some were preserved in pristine condition, creates a fascinating legacy for the 1960 cent for everyday collectors. The 1960 penny is a reminder that even the most common coins can hide incredible stories. Millions upon millions were struck that year at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and for most people, these coins circulated and wore down just like any other cent. Today, you can find 1960 pennies in change jars, collections, and old rolls, and in most cases, they are worth only a few cents in circulated condition. But knowing that among those countless coins there are rare varieties, double dies, and high-grade survivors worth tens of thousands, or in the most spectacular cases, between $66,000 and $138,000, adds an element of mystery and excitement that keeps collectors searching. Auction houses over the years have consistently shown that demand for the 1960 penny is alive and well. Stories circulate of coins tucked away for decades, discovered in old proof sets or original rolls, and then brought to market where bidding wars erupt among collectors. These moments remind us that coin collecting is not just about history or artistry. It's also about the thrill of discovery and the hope that even an ordinary coin might turn out to be extraordinary. The cultural significance of the penny also plays a role here. In 1960, pennies still had real purchasing power, enough to buy candy, a newspaper, or small household items. Today, the penny is often seen as a nuisance in circulation, with debates about whether to even continue producing it. But coins like the 1960 cent prove that the penny can carry a value far beyond its face, not only in terms of money but also in terms of history and collecting passion. When you step back and look at the broader picture, the 1960 penny embodies the perfect storm of numismatic interest. It combines a major design change era, a famous and widely collected variety in the small date versus large date, dramatic errors like double dies, and the potential for incredibly high-grade survivors. On top of that, it exists in both circulation strikes and proof issues, each with their own rare and desirable examples. This is why the 1960 penny is not just another coin. It's a coin that tells a story of American history, mint experimentation, collector enthusiasm, and the unpredictable world of numismatics. For those who love coins, it is a reminder that treasures can come from anywhere, and that the smallest details can mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth a small fortune. So if you ever come across a 1960 penny, take a closer look. Examine the date carefully. See if it's a small date or large date. Look for signs of doubling. Check its condition, because hidden among the ordinary examples could be a coin that belongs in the elite category, one of those few prized survivors capable of selling for $66,000 to $138,000. It's a powerful reminder that every coin has a story, and some stories are worth far more than their weight in copper. The 1979 1-cent penny may seem like just another small piece of copper that passed through millions of hands in grocery stores, vending machines, or children's piggy banks, but this particular coin carries far more significance than many people realize. For most, a penny is hardly worth noticing, often dropped on sidewalks, tossed into jars, or ignored at the checkout counter. Yet, in the world of coin collecting, certain examples of the 1979 penny have become legendary, with values reaching anywhere from $58,000 to $128,000 depending on their rarity, condition, and historical importance. The story behind this penny is one of hidden value, minting quirks, and the enduring passion collectors have for coins that connect us with history. To understand why the 1979 penny holds such importance, we need to look at its background. By 1979, the U.S. Mint had been producing Lincoln cents for 70 years, ever since their debut in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The penny had become one of the most recognized coins in American history, featuring Victor David Brenner's famous portrait of Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial design on the reverse, which had been in use since 1959. What made the 1979 issue stand out is not a complete redesign, but rather the subtleties and errors that occurred during production that year, turning ordinary copper pennies into extraordinary collectibles. At that time, the penny was still being struck in its traditional copper composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a formula used since 1864. It would not be until 1982 that the mint switched to a copper-plated zinc composition to cut costs. So the 1979 penny holds a special place as one of the last copper-heavy cents. Its intrinsic metal value, though small, adds to the nostalgia collector's feel when holding one. But more than its metal content, the intrigue comes from specific varieties and minting errors that appeared in 1979, giving rise to some of the most valuable modern cents known today. One of the most famous and desirable varieties from this year is the 1979 penny with a wide AM in America on the reverse. Most pennies struck that year had the letters A and M close together, but a small number were minted using a proof-style reverse die, creating a noticeable gap between the two letters. This subtle difference has turned ordinary-looking coins into treasures once identified by collectors. Another sought-after variety is the 1979 double die, where certain coins show doubling in the inscriptions or design details, particularly in the date and lettering. These double die examples can bring incredible premiums, as errors of this magnitude are always highly collectible. High-grade mint state examples of the 1979 penny also play a huge role in its value. Millions upon millions of these coins were circulated heavily, making pristine examples extremely hard to find. A penny that still has its original luster, sharp detail, and virtually no marks is exceedingly rare. Coins graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services are considered condition rarities, and when one of these surfaces at auction, the competition can be fierce. It is not unusual for such pieces to reach values within the $58,000 to $128,000 range, especially when tied to other varieties or minting oddities. Some of the most engaging stories in numismatics come from people unknowingly discovering these rarities. A person searching through a jar of old pennies might stumble across a 1979 double die or wide AM variety without realizing it at first glance. The thrill of discovering that a coin worth 1 cent could potentially sell for $100,000 or more is what keeps collectors searching through rolls of pennies from banks or checking their pocket change carefully. The possibility that treasure could be hiding in plain sight gives the 1979 penny an aura of mystery and excitement. Auction houses have witnessed dramatic moments when these coins go up for sale. Collectors from around the world, knowing how few of these varieties exist in top condition, bid aggressively to secure them. There was one memorable event where a brilliant uncirculated 1979 penny with an error struck drew such intense bidding that the price quickly skyrocketed, finally selling for more than $100,000. Stories like this spread rapidly among collectors and casual hobbyists alike, fueling more interest in examining everyday coins for the chance of striking gold, or in this case, copper. Beyond its market value, the 1979 penny also tells a broader story about American coinage and its evolution. It reflects a time just before the penny underwent significant changes in composition, and it connects to the long tradition of Lincoln cents as a cultural icon. The Lincoln Memorial reverse, used from 1959 through 2008, is deeply symbolic, not only representing Lincoln's enduring legacy but also reminding people of a period in U.S. history when coins carried designs that blended artistry with national identity. Collectors often see the 1979 penny as a bridge between the older tradition of heavy copper coinage and the modern era of cost-cutting changes. The journey from a simple 1-cent coin to a 6-figure collectible lies in rarity, condition, and the story behind the coin. The $58,000 to $128,000 price range associated with some of these rare 1979 pennies demonstrates the incredible demand among collectors. People are willing to pay these sums not just for the coin itself but for the chance to own a piece of history that represents rarity, discovery, and the thrill of numismatics. For those who collect Lincoln cents as a full series, finding the rarest examples from 1979 is often considered a pinnacle achievement. For casual collectors or those new to the hobby, the 1979 penny serves as a reminder to never underestimate what might seem ordinary. While the vast majority of these coins are only worth their face value, there are those rare examples hidden among them that can transform a pocket change discovery into a life-changing event. It is this possibility that keeps the story of the 1979 penny alive and ensures that collectors continue to search, study, and treasure these coins. When you think about how many people have walked past a penny on the ground, never picking it up because it seemed insignificant, and then realize that some 1979 pennies are worth up to $128,000, it adds an entirely new perspective. It transforms the penny from something overlooked into something legendary. Collectors understand this well, which is why they continue to cherish, protect, and pursue these coins with such passion. The 1979 1-cent penny is more than just a coin. It is a symbol of hidden potential, a reminder that value can be found where it is least expected, and a testament to the artistry and history embedded in U.S. coinage. Whether it is through a rare wide AM variety, a dramatic double die, or a pristine mint-state example, this coin continues to captivate collectors and inspire new generations to look more closely at the money in their hands. For some, the discovery of such a coin has meant turning a humble cent into a treasure worth between $58,000 and $128,000, proving that even the smallest coin can carry an extraordinary story. The 1988 1-cent penny is one of those coins that most people pass over without even giving a second thought. But for collectors and those who truly understand the world of numismatics, it is a coin filled with fascination, hidden value, and history. At first glance, the penny from 1988 looks just like any other Lincoln cent you might have used in a vending machine or tossed into a jar. It carries the same familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the iconic Lincoln Memorial on the back. Yet buried within certain examples of this coin lies a level of rarity and intrigue that can turn an ordinary piece of pocket change into a treasure worth anywhere from $49,000 to $112,000. That range alone is enough to spark curiosity, but once you learn the story behind why, it becomes even more captivating. The Lincoln Cent series has always been a cornerstone of American coinage. Since 1909, when Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln first appeared on the penny to celebrate Lincoln's 100th birthday, it has remained one of the most recognized and collected coins in the country. The design has undergone only a few major changes, and by 1988 the Lincoln Memorial design, introduced in 1959, was still in use. Millions upon millions of these pennies rolled off the presses in 1988, and yet it is precisely within this enormous mintage that the story of rarity begins to take shape. What makes some 1988 pennies so valuable is not simply their age but rather the small details and production quirks that occurred at the U.S. Mint. 1988 is especially famous among collectors because of the transition variety error known as the 1988 penny with a 1989 reverse. Essentially, some pennies struck in 1988 accidentally used a reverse die intended for the following year, creating a subtle but significant difference. The key detail is in the initials of the reverse designer, Frank Gasparo. On normal 1988 pennies, the designer's initials are slightly different in spacing and style compared to those on the 1989 reverse. This mix-up created one of the most desirable modern errors, and it instantly set certain 1988 pennies apart from the rest. For the everyday collector, spotting such a variety requires a careful eye, but the thrill of the hunt is what keeps so many people sifting through their change and coin rolls. Stories of collectors finding one of these rare varieties in circulation have spread through the coin community, fueling even more excitement. What makes it even better is knowing that a single cent pulled from circulation could, under the right circumstances, be worth as much as $49,000 to $112,000. That kind of transformation, from 1 cent to a six-figure prize, creates an emotional connection that no other object of similar size could inspire. Beyond this famous variety, condition also plays a massive role in determining value. By 1988, the U.S. Mint was producing pennies in a copper-plated zinc composition rather than the nearly pure copper coins of earlier years. This new composition was cheaper to produce but also more prone to corrosion, spotting, and discoloration. Finding a 1988 penny that has survived in pristine, mint-state condition is no easy task. Those that grade at the highest levels, particularly MS67 or higher, are exceedingly rare. When one of these flawless coins comes to auction, the bidding can be intense, as collectors are willing to pay extraordinary sums for the best of the best. There have been cases where examples of these coins have stunned both the collecting world and casual observers alike when they crossed the auction block. A collector who had taken the time to carefully save and submit coins for grading discovered that one of their 1988 pennies not only graded at an exceptional level, but also carried the coveted transition reverse variety. When it sold, the hammer price was enough to change the way many people thought about modern coins. That sale reinforced the idea that the smallest details, often overlooked, could mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth a fortune. The emotional pull of this story is what makes the 1988 penny so special. It captures the spirit of numismatics, the pursuit of rarity, the appreciation for design, and the thrill of discovery. For some, it is about completing a collection, owning every important variety and error in the Lincoln Cent series. For others, it is about the hope that somewhere in their pocket change or a forgotten jar at home lies a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. It's this sense of possibility that draws people in and keeps them engaged with coins that most of the world ignores. The 1988 penny also symbolizes a transition in American coinage. It came during a period when the penny was being produced in staggering numbers, yet cost-cutting measures like the shift to zinc were changing the very nature of the coin. For older generations, the copper-heavy pennies carried weight and durability, while the zinc versions of 1988 and beyond felt lighter and more fragile. This difference adds another layer of nostalgia for collectors who remember the feel of the older pennies and recognize the historical significance of this shift. For those who approach coin collecting seriously, studying varieties like the 1988 transition reverse is essential. It sharpens the eye, teaches attention to detail, and deepens appreciation for the artistry and complexity of minting coins. For casual collectors, the lure is often more practical, the chance that they might discover a coin in their pocket that could change their lives financially. And when you consider the fact that some 1988 pennies can fetch $49,000 to $112,000 depending on condition and rarity, that dream doesn't seem so far-fetched. Think about the countless times people have passed over a penny on the ground, believing it to be worthless. In the case of the 1988 penny, that overlooked coin could very well have been a hidden treasure. It challenges the idea of what we consider valuable and reminds us that sometimes the greatest prizes come in the smallest packages. That is the power of coins like this one. They blur the line between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Collectors who pursue the 1988 penny often tell stories of how their interest began with a simple roll of coins from the bank or a handful of change from a grocery store. Some become fascinated by the details, researching and learning how to identify the subtle differences that separate the valuable varieties from the common ones. For many, the pursuit becomes a passion, one that not only connects them to the 1988 penny but also to the entire history of U.S. coinage. Ultimately, the 1988 1-cent penny is more than just a coin. It is a symbol of possibility, of history, and of the human tendency to search for meaning and value in the smallest of objects. It is a reminder that sometimes what seems insignificant can hold extraordinary worth. Whether it is the famous transition reverse variety, a flawless mint state survivor, or simply the thrill of the hunt, the 1988 penny has carved out a place of honor in the world of rare coins. And for those lucky enough to own one of the finest examples, its value ranging between $49,000 and $112,000 proves that the humble penny can still astonish and inspire.